the day Marcel's goddess returned to the country. She and I trended at the same time. She was the untouchable queen of the entertainment industry, adored by everyone. I was mocked online as a pathetic simp girl hopelessly in love. When Marcel called, his voice was cold. "I have business tonight. I'm not coming home." I looked out the car window and saw him wrapping an arm around a woman as they walked into a hotel together. "Okay, Before I could even respond properly, the force from behind suddenly intensified, knocking my breathing completely out of rhythm. Marcel paused. "What are you doing?" I bit my lip and hung up the phone. A scorching breath brushed against my ear as the man behind me moved even more ruthlessly. "Guess what?" he murmured darkly. "Do you think he'll notice what's happening over here?" Chapter 1. News of Rose's return had been dominating the trending charts for an entire month. The night I went to pick Marcel up from a business dinner, I paused briefly outside the private room, just in time to hear one of his friends ask inside, "Rose is coming back soon. What about Iris then?" Marcel's tone was indifferent. "What about her?" "No matter what, she's still your legally wedded wife." Through the half-closed door, I saw Marcel holding a cigarette between his lips, his lowered eyes blurred behind pale smoke. With a mocking laugh, he said, "She said it herself. No matter how badly I treat her, she'd never leave me. Because she loves me." His friend chimed in immediately. "Well, the Sue family has been bankrupt for ages. The only reason she managed to marry Marcel is because she shamelessly threw herself at him with that face that looks like Rose. Seriously cheap too. Do you guys even know what she did back then?" I stood outside silently for a moment before pushing the door open. "Marcel." The room instantly fell quiet. Everyone looked up at me, their eyes filled with concealed contempt and amusement. Marcel draped his coat over his arm and stood up. "I'm heading home first." The entire walk to the parking lot, he remained silent. Only after I started the car did he suddenly speak. "You heard what they said outside, didn't you?" I turned to look at him. There was a shadow by the door. He tapped lightly against the car window with his knuckles. "Iris, you've always known your place. You know what should and shouldn't be said. Another month from now, I hope you'll still be this sensible. Don't do anything stupid." I understood immediately. Marcel Law was warning me. He was terrified I might use some dirty trick to hurt the woman he truly loved. Because in half a month, Rose would be back. Before marrying Marcel, I already knew I was nothing more than a substitute. The Sue family had collapsed long ago, and because my face resembled the famous actress Rose by 70%, Marcel chose me to become his fiancée. My parents were ecstatic. My father constantly warned me, "The fact that Mr. Law even noticed you is an honor for the Sue family. If you make him unhappy, your mother and I will no longer acknowledge you as our daughter." For 3 years of marriage, I took meticulous care of Marcel in every possible way. But whenever he faced me, he was always distant and superior. A few times, when he got drunk, he would grab my chin and study my face carefully from top to bottom, then sneer in disgust. "A thing like you deserves to share her face?" And when he got even drunker, he would mistake me for Rose, burying his face against my shoulder as he whispered hoarsely, "Why did you leave me? Now that I've married someone else, do you regret it?" At times like that, Marcel's touch bordered on cruel torment. The slightest resistance from me would only earn cold mockery from him. "What's wrong? Your parents told you to please me. Is this how you do it?" Under the lights, his gaze looking down at me was icy and oppressive. The tiny mole on the bridge of his nose became even more distinct beneath the light. I froze instantly. My eyelashes trembled slightly before I obediently closed my eyes. Coming back to my senses, I tightened my grip on the steering wheel and answered softly, "I understand." Chapter 2. The day Rose returned to the country, the airport was overflowing with fans waiting to welcome her back. Marcel had hired people to build a rose-covered walkway over 10 meters long at the arrival gate just for her. Rose walked down the path of roses and, with an emotional smile, threw herself into Marcel's arms at the end of the aisle. Someone captured the scene on camera, added dreamy filters and sentimental captions before posting it online. Within moments, it shot straight to the top of the trending charts. A love that never fades. Rose was a true heiress, a woman born to stand above everyone else. Back then, when she debuted as an actress and started dating Marcel, the entire affair had caused a sensation. Even after they broke up, even after she went abroad to further her studies. Even after Marcel married me, countless fans online still obsessively shipped the two of them together. In the parking garage beneath the company building, I sat curled up inside the car, pressing a hand against my painfully cramping stomach as I scrolled through the trending topics. Among the names dominating the rankings, besides Marcel and Rose, there was also mine, Iris Sue the knockoff. That shameless bitch who threw herself at a rich man. Poor Rose got associated with her, seriously unlucky. Rose's fans hated me. They believed that a nobody from a ruined family like me could only marry into the wealthy law family because I happened to have a face similar to hers. Some even claimed I was the homewrecker who forced Rose to leave the country. Every few days, they would drag my name back out online just to insult me again. But Marcel Law never once clarified things for me. In fact, one time, I accidentally saw a message he had sent to Rose. If insulting her helps you vent your anger, I can hire more people to stir things up. Can't you come back sooner? That was when I realized the reason those people attacked me so viciously was because Marcel allowed it. No, he encouraged it. I silently stared at the disgusting insults flooding the comments for a while. Just as I was about to close INS, a new trending topic suddenly appeared. In an instant, it crushed the romantic headlines about Marcel and Rose and shot straight to the #1 spot. Zachary returns to the country. The familiar name made me freeze. By the time I realized it, the fingers tapping against my screen were trembling unconsciously. I clicked on the video. A man dressed in a black t-shirt appeared on screen. His sharp features cold and striking. A tiny mole rested on the bridge of his tall nose. With an indifferent expression, he walked straight through the crowd and stepped all over the carefully arranged rose walkway. Marcel stopped him immediately, anger obvious in his voice. Are you blind? Can't you watch where you're going? The man turned his head slightly, the diamond stud in his ear gleaming brilliantly under the lights. Sorry. His tone was completely flat. His sharp gaze swept over Marcel as if he were nothing more than an obstacle in the way. If compensation is needed, my manager can contact you. Do you think this is about money? Not about money? Zachary glanced at the crushed rose petals scattered across the floor before slowly lifting his eyes. Then, word by word, he asked, So what? You trying to scam me? Chapter 3. On the trending pages. Rose's fans and Zachary's fans were already tearing each other apart online. Why is this guy acting so arrogant? Does he seriously think he's handsome? A world champion is obviously more impressive than some cheating trash who thinks adultery is a flex. If you're blind, go get treatment. World champion. Those two words stunned me for a moment. After searching his name, I finally learned. Zachary was a professional sports player from the European division of a competitive game. And last year, he had won the world championship title. Recently, a domestic club had signed him with an annual salary of $40 million. Combined with his terrifyingly good looks and incredible gaming skills, he had gained an enormous fan base both domestically and overseas. So he had already become someone this dazzling now. I rubbed my aching stomach. Through my increasingly blurry vision, I seemed to see the boy from years ago again. Back then, in the pouring rain, he had waited downstairs outside my apartment all night like a drenched stray puppy. My phone screen still held the messages he had sent me. Do you really not want me anymore? Did I do something wrong? Did I hurt you? Iris, don't ever beg me to get back together with you in the future. After leaving behind that final harsh sentence, Zachary blocked every way I had to contact him and obediently followed his family's arrangements to go abroad. For the next 7 years, I never heard a single thing about him again. I never imagined that the next time I saw him would be standing on top of a romantic scene my husband prepared for another woman. How absurd. I shut my eyes tightly. In my mind, I could almost picture those beautiful yet razor-sharp eyes staring mockingly at the trending topic. Knock off Iris. What would he think? Probably that I deserved it. Chapter 4. That night, Marcel didn't come home. The only thing he sent me was a message. Business dinner tonight. Sleep by yourself. No need to wait for me. Out of habit. I replied, Do you need me to pick you up? Only after sending it did I suddenly remember. Rose had already returned. The so-called business dinner was probably a welcome party his friends had arranged for her. Sure enough, Marcel immediately sent back a mocking reply dripping with contempt. Do I really have to spell it out for you? Iris. Learn your place. Silently, I put down my phone and went to take a shower. Afterward, I walked into the study and placed the divorce papers I'd had a lawyer draft earlier that day onto Marcel's desk. But when I came back out, a new friend request had appeared on my screen. Note, Zachary. I stared at that name for a very long time. Only after several deep breaths did I finally press accept. Almost immediately, he sent me a photo. In the dim lighting of a private booth at a bar, Marcel had an arm wrapped around Rose's waist. His lips pressed against her cheek in an intimately affectionate pose. My eyes burned painfully, biting my lip. My trembling fingers typed out a reply. Did you add me just to laugh at me? Zachary didn't answer right away. At the top of the screen, the small words typing made my heart sink little by little into frozen water. A moment later, a new message finally appeared. Do you want to get revenge on them? When I entered the bar, I kept checking the booth number Zachary had sent me on my phone, just about to stop a passing waiter for directions, when a familiar voice suddenly sounded beside me. Here, warm fingers wrapped around my wrist. Before I could react, I was yanked sharply forward and slammed into a warm chest. A familiar yet unfamiliar scent instantly filled my senses. I stiffened, one hand pressed against the back of my head, pinning me against him. Don't make a sound. Zachary's voice brushed against my ear. Because he had deliberately lowered it, it carried a slightly husky roughness. Your husband and his little mistress just walked past. Wouldn't want them catching us. The mockery in his tone was unmistakable. Suddenly, my eyes felt hot. 7 years ago, Zachary hadn't been like this. Back then, he had been sincere, passionate. After pinning me against the piano and kissing me until I could barely breathe, he would rest his forehead against mine and murmur softly, Iris, say that we'll stay together forever. If you don't say it, I'm not letting go. How long are you planning to hold on to me? Zachary's voice sounded again, abruptly dragging me out of my memories. I released him and looked up at the familiar face before me. At such close distance, the cold sharpness between his raised brows became even more obvious. I steadied myself and tried to keep my voice calm. Sorry. For the rest of the way, Zachary led me without another word, like he knew the place by heart. He guided me through dimly lit corridors before bringing me to a silver and black Lamborghini parked outside. The engine started. The car accelerated smoothly, following behind Marcel's vehicle ahead. I couldn't stop myself from blurting out, Isn't this drunk driving? I didn't drink. Zachary glanced sideways at me. Alcohol affects reaction speed. In competition, even the smallest mistake can be fatal. He was talking about a world completely unfamiliar to me. I didn't know how to respond. Only after the car stopped outside a luxury apartment building and after Marcel loosely wrapped an arm around Rose while leading her inside, did I finally speak again. You said revenge. How exactly are we supposed to do that? Zachary lifted a brow lazily and pointed at himself. I'm offering you a candidate. Then he smiled faintly, eyes dark and dangerous. How about giving Mr. Law a taste of cheating himself? Chapter 5. Zachary's apartment was not far from the club's training center. The moment we stepped inside, he grabbed my shoulders and pinned me against the wall. He stopped barely a centimeter from my lips before asking slowly, Can we kiss first? Don't misunderstand. Under the faint city lights filtering through the window, he stared directly into my eyes and gave a quiet laugh. I just need to get into the mood. I dug my nails into my palm and answered softly. Okay. The next second, his lips crashed against mine. The kiss was almost violent, grinding over and over against my mouth with overwhelming force. His scorching breath brushed along my neck as he moved downward, one hand pressing firmly against the sharp curve of my shoulder blades. You've gotten thinner. His voice suddenly softened. I'll be gentler. Compared to 7 years ago, Zachary had become far more assertive. Back then, I was the one who pursued him first. And when difficulties came, I was also the one who chose to abandon him. Zachary probably hated me. The thought made my heart twist painfully, sour and aching like it had been soaked in lemon juice. Then suddenly, the pressure against me eased. Zachary's cold voice sounded beside my ear, edged with anger. Iris, you're spacing out while you're with me? What? Thinking about that cheating husband of yours? The lights snapped brightly on. It felt as though all the filthy, Hidden thoughts buried deep inside me had been dragged into the open with nowhere left to hide. Even though I knew almost nothing about the esports world, the fanatic obsession from fans on INS was enough for me to understand. Zachary now had a dazzling future ahead of him. I shouldn't drag him into this filthy mess of a marriage. Slowly, I straightened myself and spoke calmly. I'm sorry. This is between me and him. You shouldn't be involved. Instead of calming down, my words only made Zachary angrier. He laughed out of sheer fury, lowered his head again, and kissed me even harder. Regretting it now? Too late, sister. Throughout the deliberately prolonged intimacy that followed, fragments of the past gradually resurfaced in my mind. The younger Zachary had once been overflowing with reckless energy. Now, he was no longer impulsive like before, but his skills had become far more dangerous. Even while tormenting me until the corners of my eyes turned red, he still had enough composure left to brush away my tears with his thumb and curl his lips into a teasing smile. That's enough to make you cry? Sister, your husband really doesn't seem very capable. When I woke up the next morning, daylight was already pouring through the room. The ringing of my phone had dragged me awake. The moment I answered, Marcel's voice came through immediately. Where are you? At the office. Come home right now. His tone was heavy with suppressed rage. Iris, what gives you the right to ask me for a divorce? After the call ended, I pushed myself up, only for an arm to wrap around my waist and pull me right back onto the bed. Zachary held my shoulders down, his expression dark. You planning to leave after using me? I took 2 shallow breaths before reaching up to grip his wrist, slowly moving his hand away. My tone was serious. I have to go back. I need to settle things properly first. Chapter 6. The moment I stepped through the front door, several sheets of paper were hurled directly at my face. The sharp edges sliced across my cheek. When I lifted a hand to wipe at it, bright red blood stained my fingertips. Marcel stood only a step away, his expression dark and stormy. You're asking for a divorce because Rose came back? Is this your first day knowing about me and her? You were the one who willingly degraded yourself to marry me. You agreed to be her substitute. So what exactly is this act now? It's nothing complicated. I bent down and picked up the divorce papers one by one before quietly looking at him. These years, the Sue family did receive a lot of help from you, but I secured the Swan District contract for Law Corporation. That deal alone was worth $1 billion. We're even now. Even? Marcel let out a cold laugh as he walked toward me, grabbing my chin and forcing my head upward. In a bad mood because of those trending insults online? I said nothing. He took my silence as agreement and smiled to himself. How about this, Iris? Kneel down and make me happy. If you please me enough, I'll have someone remove those trending topics for you. How does that sound? A sweet perfume lingered on him. Rose's perfume. I didn't even need to look carefully. One casual glance was enough to notice the intimate marks left across Marcel's neck and shoulders. Just before his lips could touch mine, I shoved him away violently. Don't forget, Rose is already back. Caught off guard, Marcel staggered backward several steps and slammed against the cabinet by the entrance. His face instantly darkened. If you refuse to sign, my lawyers will contact you for divorce proceedings. For the sake of the company's stock price, you'd better sign directly. I stood by the doorway, calmly meeting his gaze. I'll send someone later to collect the rest of my belongings. He rubbed the corner of his lips with his thumb before suddenly laughing coldly. You've gotten bold, Iris. You're nothing more than a dog I raised. 1 month. I'll make you crawl back here and beg me on your knees to remarry you. I ignored the threat completely and turned to leave. After walking out, I immediately blocked my parents' phone numbers and WeChat accounts. Then, scrolling upward, I saw a message from Zachary. I'm heading to the club. Closed training for half a month. There's a competition coming up. If there's an emergency, call this number. Below it was a string of digits. After a long silence, I simply replied, okay. But Zachary never answered again. Not long after, I saw his name trending once more. Zachary alt account. Zachary Rose. After opening the topic, I discovered that someone had dug up an old INS account Zachary used years ago when he still lived in the country. There weren't many posts on the profile, only around 20 in total. Dummy sister. Who buys room temperature cola for someone? The second I think about seeing her, I can't even focus on gaming anymore. Fuck. I like her so much. Practicing kissing skills. The final post had been uploaded during the summer 7 years ago. A slightly blurry photograph. At the seaside during sunset. A teenage boy and girl kissing. Only their indistinct side profiles could be seen clearly. The caption read, "Endless Summer." Chapter 7. The entire internet exploded. Did anyone see the photo of Rose on Zachary's alt account? So he stayed single all these years. From overseas till now. Because he's been in love with Rose? I'm losing my mind. So when he confronted Marcel at the airport that day, it was because he was jealous? The gossip-loving public dragged out the old airport footage and the photo again and again, endlessly comparing them and creating countless edited fan videos. Very quickly, Rose became the entertainment industry's one and only flawless white jasmine. That evening, she happened to appear in a live stream interview. Facing the cameras, she smiled brightly and elegantly. That was all many years ago. After all, it's already in the past. I didn't know he would still be this unforgettable about it. Then sharp-eyed gossip fans discovered even more drama. Looking closely, Marcel and Zachary actually resembled each other by 30%, especially the mole on the bridge of their noses. The difference was that one carried the arrogance of someone born above everyone else, while the other possessed a cold indifference that seemed to place no one in his eyes at all. I was certain Marcel had seen the trending topic too. He called me. I hung up. Soon after, another message came through. "Iris, you'd better give me an explanation." I blocked him. Very quickly, the day of the competition arrived. Although it was only a regular season match, it was Zachary's first game after returning to the country. Combined with the recently explosive love triangle scandal, the attention surrounding it was absurd. The live stream reached 70 million viewers. Zachary's team won 3-1. During the post-match interview, a reporter directly asked about the photo from his alt account. Alt account? Zachary interlocked his fingers beneath his chin. You people are pretty impressive at digging things up. Ever considered applying to national intelligence agencies? The reporter choked for a second before stubbornly continuing. So the girl in that photo really was Rose? And when you clashed with Marcel at the airport, was it because of jealousy? Rose. Zachary lowered his gaze slightly, looking at the excited reporters below the stage. He suddenly let out a soft laugh. She's worthy of that? Only half a month after returning home, Zachary's name once again surged to the top of the trending charts. Rose's attempt to ride the hype backfired completely, and she was mocked across the internet. In the comments section, her fans and Zachary's fans started another massive war. What a rude man, talking about a girl like that. Hilarious. Your idol shamelessly tried to cling to his popularity, and you still expect him to spare her dignity? I sat inside the car, still scrolling through the endless arguments in the comments, when my phone was suddenly taken away. What's so interesting about people fighting online? Look at me instead. My eyelashes trembled slightly as I lifted my head beneath the dim glow of the car lights. Zachary sat beside me. With one hand, he pulled me directly onto his lap. "Can I kiss you?" he asked. Before I could answer, he added lazily, "Refusing a champion is generally not recommended." The kiss lasted for a very long time. As his lips gradually moved lower, the atmosphere became increasingly intimate. I leaned weakly against Zachary's shoulder, staring at his hand beneath the blurred lights, veins shifting beneath his skin like rushing currents. Then suddenly, my phone rang, an unfamiliar number. But the moment I answered, Marcel's voice came through, cold to the extreme. "Iris." I bit my lip hard, struggling desperately to steady my uneven breathing. "Where are you? I want to see you." I am. Before I could even respond properly, the intensified force behind me knocked my breathing completely out of rhythm. Marcel paused. His tone changed instantly. "What are you doing?" I couldn't speak at all anymore. Using the last bit of strength I had left, I lifted trembling fingers and ended the call. Zachary leaned close to my ear. His movements became even harsher, yet his voice was soft as a whisper. "Guess what? Do you think he heard it?" Chapter 8. That night, Zachary brought me back to his place again. Those hands that danced so effortlessly across a keyboard moved unbelievably fast in other ways too. Outside the window, rain poured endlessly. drenching the entire world in dampness. Because Marcel still hadn't signed the divorce papers, I hadn't told Zachary about them yet. But somehow, he found out anyway. Even the way he referred to Marcel changed from your husband to your ex-husband. At the end of the month, there was a grand gala banquet. The organizers had deliberately invited both Zachary and Rose, clearly trying to stir up drama. When I accompanied Zachary there, I still felt confused. Why bring me along? He lifted a brow lazily. To disgust your ex-husband. How's that for a reason? Sure enough, Rose arrived together with Marcel. She wore a dazzling silver gown, chin slightly raised in her usual proud posture. But Marcel, with Rose holding onto his arm, stared directly at me with an expression darker than ever. I had seen that look on his face more than once before, but every previous time, it had been because of gossip scandals about Rose overseas. Jealousy. After the award ceremony ended, Rose suddenly approached with 2 glasses of wine, coming over to toast Zachary and me. I'm sorry, the person in that photo looked so much like me that I misunderstood. If it caused trouble for you, I truly apologize. Can you forgive me? No, Zachary answered flatly. Are you missing part of your brainstem? Or are you suffering from early dementia? The people in that picture were kissing, and you still dared to claim it was you? Miss Rose, have we even met before? Have I ever seen you? Embarrassment flashed through Rose's eyes, but in the end, she still forced a smile. At least from now on, nobody will misunderstand anymore. Looking into the hatred hidden deep in her eyes, unease suddenly crept into my chest. After the banquet ended, Zachary and I checked into the luxury hotel suite arranged by the organizers. Once the door was shut, I finally turned around and voiced the question I had buried for so long. That photo, I secretly took it that day at the beach. Zachary admitted it calmly before laughing at himself. I thought when you asked me out, it was really to discuss our future together. My nose stung instantly. From those old INS posts alone, it was obvious how excited and hopeful Zachary had been back then. And after returning from that beach trip, I broke up with him without hesitation. I opened my mouth, about to speak, when Zachary's expression suddenly turned cold. Don't say anything yet. Haven't you noticed? The smell in this room is strange. A sweet fragrance drifted faintly through the air. Realizing something, my face changed instantly as I hurriedly grabbed my phone. INS had completely exploded. The number 1 and number 2 trending topics were Iris cheating during marriage, Zachary homewrecker. Before I could even react, chaotic footsteps rapidly approached from outside the room. A few seconds later, the hotel door, which should have been locked, was violently shoved open. A swarm of reporters rushed inside. Countless camera lenses pointed directly at us as flashes burst wildly through the room. There they are! The cheating couple is here. Chapter 9. Does the boss still want to see how I operate? Zachary pushed the keyboard aside and turned to look at me. There's actually no need to worry. You already watched the live stream match that night, so I assume. It was as if he had only just noticed the swarm of reporters barging in, and his voice suddenly stopped. When he spoke again, he raised an eyebrow, his gaze turning cold. You all seem to be in quite a good mood. Instead of going home to rest this late at night, you come here to interrupt a conversation between my boss and me. What's the meaning of this? Don't tell me you're trying to sabotage the investment our team finally managed to secure? Every reporter in the room froze, because inside the room, Zachary and I were both fully dressed, sitting in front of his laptop, reviewing and analyzing his match replays. A few seconds later, one of the reporters finally spoke up. Mr. Zachary, may we ask why Iris Sue, as President Law's wife, attended the banquet with you, and why she's still in your room so late at night? Zachary let out a mocking laugh. Because she's my future boss. The detailed information regarding the business partnership will be posted later on the club's official account. As for everything else, he stood up and stepped forward, shielding me behind him. His tone was casual and indifferent. If there's nothing else, then please get the hell out. The reporters were completely shut down, each of their expressions uglier than the last. After they finally left, Zachary walked over and locked the door before turning back to look at me. Iris. I opened my eyes blankly, trying hard to focus on Zachary's blurred face in front of me. It felt as though flames were burning inside my body, scorching from my throat all the way to my chest and through every inch of me, until even my mind became hazy. "Are you okay?" I sluggishly shook my head, grabbing the collar of his shirt with my burning fingertips as I rasped, "Hot." Rose's faintly satisfied expression at the banquet, combined with the strange sweet fragrance lingering in the room, made the answer obvious. I felt like a tropical rainforest plant rooted in dry, cracked soil, desperately longing for a heavy rainstorm, and Zachary was the cloud I clung to tightly. Halfway through the rain, it suddenly stopped. I looked up at him helplessly. Under the dim lighting, Zachary's eyes were unreadable. "Iris, are you afraid?" "Afraid of what?" If those reporters had barged in tonight while we were like this, the movement accompanying those words was a little too forceful, making my voice tremble when I responded. Zachary immediately pulled me back into his arms again, rubbing the top of my head soothingly. "That would mean everything gets exposed. Would you be scared?" "Yes." If this got exposed, Zachary's bright future would be destroyed right then and there, and the debt I owed him would only grow even larger. In the darkness, the sharp look in Zachary's eyes dimmed slightly. "Then, would you leave me again?" My thoughts were sluggish. After thinking for a long time, I slowly shook my head. I'd tell them it was because I wanted revenge on Marcel, so I deliberately tried to seduce you, MMPH. The last sound was swallowed back forcefully by Zachary. The fog-like emotions in his eyes instantly dispersed. He curled his lips into a faint smile and covered my eyes with his hand. "I'm not as useless as your ex-husband." Zachary leaned close to my ear, his breath scorching hot, his words carrying a double meaning. "You only need to figure out your feelings. Leave everything else to me." Chapter 10. Early the next morning, Zachary returned to the club. Before leaving, he rested one hand on the steering wheel and asked if I wanted to go back with him. I shook my head. "I need to go back to the company first." Marcel still refused to sign the divorce agreement, and when my father found out I wanted a divorce, he flew into a rage. All of this had to come to an end eventually. After saying goodbye to Zachary, I got into the car heading back to the company and opened INS. Actually, I hadn't even had an INS account at first. Later, when the Sioux Corporation was brought back from the brink of collapse with Marcel's help, he had me create one for convenience. But I knew the real reason was simply to make it easier for Rose's fans to vent their emotions. Because from the very first day I registered, my INS comments had been flooded with insults. "If you hadn't stolen him away, Rose would never have broken up with President Law and left the country heartbroken. Bitch. Go die. Cheap knockoff. You must have spent a fortune on plastic surgery to look like Rose." I rarely checked INS, nor did I ever respond to those comments. The Sioux Corporation had only just been saved from bankruptcy, and there were far too many things to handle. Besides, Marcel, as the person who had helped us and also my husband in name, had endless demands for me. Bound by the debt of gratitude I owed him, I had no choice but to comply. And now, because of the trending scandal accusing me of cheating during marriage, my comment section had become even more chaotic. "Copycat queen, wasn't clinging to President Law enough? Now you're out here ruining someone else too? Slut. Absolutely disgusting." Among all the filthy insults, one seemingly rational comment had been pushed to the very top through likes. "Even if Marcel and Rose were flirting behind your back first, that still doesn't justify cheating during marriage, right? Morality is supposed to restrain yourself." My finger paused over that comment before I could tap on the replies. A message from Zachary suddenly popped up. "Don't look at INS. Don't check it these next few days." I curled my fingers slightly and replied with a single word. "Okay." He immediately called me. "Did you already see it?" For some reason, in that instant, Zachary's face from 7 years ago suddenly flashed through my mind. He had brought me back to his home. We stayed in his not-so-large bedroom while Zachary went to shower. Bored, I casually opened his laptop, and an offer letter from a prestigious overseas university immediately appeared on the screen. While I was still stunned, Zachary's voice suddenly rang out from the doorway, carrying a trace of panic. "Don't look!" I closed the page and quietly looked at him. I already saw it. He stood by the door, damp strands of hair still dripping with water, silently facing off against me as the sticky summer heat spread between us. "Iris, say something." Zachary's voice sounded again, pulling me out of the memory. "Yes, I saw it." I tugged at the corner of my lips. They're not exactly wrong. Zachary let out a mocking laugh. How are they not wrong? Marcel wanted the best of both worlds. He couldn't let go of Rose, but he still wanted to marry you. If you and I got together, at most it counts as self-defense. I never thought that term could be used that way. I laughed softly, seeing the Sioux Corporation building drawing closer ahead. I prepared to hang up, but for some reason, a sudden burst of courage rose inside me. Zachary, did you see the comments? They all say Marcel looks a lot like you. Chapter 11. The moment I walked into the office, my father greeted me with a slap delivered with all his strength. The blow knocked my face to the side. My ears rang violently, and the taste of blood spread through my mouth. Outrageous! He pointed at my nose and shouted furiously. You've really grown bold now, haven't you? How dare you ask Marcel for a divorce? I pressed my tongue against the numb, aching flesh inside my cheek and slowly turned my face back toward him. Even your mother got sick from anger because of you. You'd better go apologize properly to President Law right now and tell him you lost your mind for a moment. If you don't smooth things over today, I won't let you off. Marcel was sitting in my office chair, wearing an arrogant smile. I told you before, Iris. I want you crawling back to me like a dog, kneeling and begging me to remarry you. I closed my eyes. Fragments of the past swept before me like torn pieces of old film reels. It was the summer 7 years ago, the night before Zachary and I were supposed to go to the beach together. My mother knelt in front of me, crying as she begged me not to make things difficult for her. She said, "That boyfriend of yours comes from an ordinary family. No matter how much you like him, how could he possibly help us? If the family company collapses, how am I supposed to survive?" She knelt there, slapping herself across the face again and again. As long as my father didn't tell her to stop, she didn't dare stop. My father sat on the sofa, his face full of impatience. Iris Sue, stop degrading yourself. I, Lorenzo, raised my daughter to sell for a good price at the very least. He said that if I insisted on staying with Zachary and refused to think about the family, he would destroy Zachary's entire family. After that, they dressed me up like merchandise and dragged me to every banquet and drinking party. Later, when Rose's fans insulted me online, no one defended me partly because of this. My reputation had already become unbearable after 4 years of being treated like a product waiting to be sold. Back when the family business was still doing well, the dance and piano lessons I learned as a child had all become bargaining chips my father used to try to sell me for a higher price. And if I refused, he wouldn't hit me, he would abuse my mother instead, forcing me to submit. The Sioux Corporation was founded by him, and now that it had fallen into crisis, he was willing to sacrifice everything to save it, even his own wife and daughter. That kind of life lasted for a very long time, until the night I met Marcel at one of those drinking parties. He was drunk. The moment he saw me, he abruptly stood up and strode over to pull me into his arms, whispering in my ear, "Rose." And in my own heart, I whispered another name, Zachary. The two of them were only similar in a few details: the mole on the bridge of the nose, the slightly upturned eyes, the way they both looked down at people while speaking because they were tall. Beyond that, they weren't alike at all, at least, nowhere near as similar as Rose and I were. I just missed Zachary too much, and I missed the 18-year-old version of myself that hadn't yet become so miserable. Iris. Marcel's voice pulled me back to reality. He walked up to me, narrowed his eyes, and suddenly grabbed my throat. "If you serve me properly here today, I won't hold your little affair with Zachary against you." The hand around my neck tightened brutally, making it hard to breathe. I struggled to force out a word. Security. The office doors were slammed open, and several security guards rushed in, forcing Marcel to release me. My father tried to charge at me too, but he was restrained as well. All he could do was crane his neck and scream curses at me. "Iris, have you lost your mind? How dare you pull something like this in my company?" I straightened the wrinkled collar of my shirt and looked at them calmly. "Not your company anymore, Dad. You still don't seem to understand the situation. Now, the Sioux Corporation belongs to Iris Sue." Chapter 12. After the wedding, the chaotic mess that was the Sioux Corporation was handed over to me. Because of Marcel, my father had always trusted me completely, and over those 3 years, right under his nose, I gradually replaced every key figure in the company with people loyal to me. Looking at the ugly expression on Marcel's face, I spoke calmly. From now on, the Sue Corporation will be under my control. There are still Phase 2 and Phase 3 collaborations between our companies, so there's no need to make things too ugly. I hope you can look at this rationally. Marcel had always been used to acting superior in front of me. This was the first time I had ever seen him lose control of his emotions. He stared at me and fired off question after question. Did you start planning all of this from the moment you married me? Have you always treated me as Zachary's replacement? Iris. During these 3 years, when you took care of me so attentively and obeyed my every wish, was there ever even a little sincerity in it? By the time he asked the last question, his tone was almost frantic. I thought about it for a moment and suddenly found it a little funny. What exactly gives you the right to ask me that question? From the very beginning, this was a business marriage. You treated me as Rose's substitute and as a tool to provoke her, while I needed the Law family's money and influence to take control of my family's company. It was just a transaction. Why are you asking for sincerity? My sincerity had already been completely given away to the young Zachary back when I was 18. The moment I thought of Zachary, those restless emotions inside me began stirring again. I irritably pulled out a cigarette case, shook one loose, and bit it between my lips. Then I waved casually at the stunned Marcel. If there's nothing else, goodbye. By evening, a light rain had started falling outside. I sat in the car and took out my phone, only to discover that Zachary had posted a new update. On INS, he publicly questioned the banquet organizers, demanding to know why a large group of reporters had been allowed into his room without permission. Someone in the comments asked him, "So that night, you really were alone in a room with the married Iris?" Yes. Zachary's response was shockingly direct. I was entertaining my future boss. What's the problem? Shortly after that comment was posted, the official account of Zachary's team released a statement. In order to deliver even better results to our supporters, the club has always spared no expense when it comes to transfer fees for top-tier players. This has also caused some temporary financial strain. Regarding the rumors spreading online, we would like to clarify that Ms. Iris is simply our team's current major shareholder and future boss. Soon afterward, the team members, including Zachary himself, began reposting the statement one after another. Welcome, boss. In just a few short hours, my INS comment section had been completely flooded with gratitude and praise. Big Sis really has good taste. Investing in us is definitely the right move. I heard before that the small team practically went broke trying to bring Zachary back to the country. They almost had to sell off club assets. So basically, if Iris hadn't stepped in to help, the club might have shut down sooner or later. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to our sugar mommy investor. All those insults from Rose's fans had long since been buried beneath waves of comments from Zachary's fans and the team's supporters. The fighting power of esports fans was truly terrifying. In just this short amount of time, plenty of people had already been bullied into deleting their comments. I sat frozen in the car until the burning ash at the end of my cigarette brushed against my fingers, scorching my skin painfully. Only then did I hurriedly stub it out and send Zachary a message. When exactly did we reach a partnership agreement? Don't you believe investing in me can make money, sis? Zachary immediately called me. I fell silent for a moment. You just came back to the country. Your career is only beginning to develop again. There's no need for you to pay such a huge price just because of me. On his end, the rushing sound of wind and rain gradually faded away, as though he had walked into somewhere quiet. In the end, all that remained was his voice, cold and sharp like mountain spring water. So you're planning to end things between us again just like that? I lit another cigarette and held it between my fingers before answering with difficulty. Zachary, you need to think about your career. He sounded almost amused by anger. After a pause, his voice dropped lower. Iris, why do you think I came back to this country? From your point of view, Zachary already won first place and gained all the glory he could want. So why would I come back and start over from scratch in some unknown little team? Guess. My miserable and absurd marriage had never actually had anything to do with him. A starry sports player with a brilliant future ahead of him didn't need to drag himself into this mess under the excuse of helping me get revenge just to watch the drama unfold. What Zachary was asking me was something I had known the answer to from the very beginning. When no answer came from me, he seemed to lose patience and finally said it outright. Iris, I never forgot that summer. It felt as though someone had suddenly clenched my heart tightly in their hand, yet at the same time stuffed it full of melting candy. I couldn't tell whether the pain hurt more, or whether the sweetness sank deeper. I took a hard drag on the cigarette and rasped out before the smoke could make my eyes water. Zachary, I want to see you. Right now. Chapter 13. At a famous private hot pot restaurant in the city center, Zachary's teammates and I stared awkwardly at each other. He stood off to the side with a cold expression, obviously in a terrible mood. Several young boys lined up neatly and greeted me in unison. Hello, boss. Out of habit, I curved my lips into a gentle smile and asked warmly, why did you all come along too? The boys exchanged glances before collectively turning to look at Zachary beside them. Zachary said he was going to meet someone really important. We just finished reviewing our matches anyway, and everyone happened to be free. So we came together. We didn't expect it to be the boss. Because of the nature of the esports industry, all of them were very young. The youngest one, Cody, was still underage. He wore the uniform of No. 24 high school next door and looked unbelievably well behaved. Such fake innocence. Zachary coldly tossed out the comment, then casually took my hand in front of everyone and led me toward the private room. I tried pulling away, but not only did I fail, his grip tightened even more. Your teammates are still kids. Isn't this a little inappropriate in front of them? Zachary stared at me for 2 seconds, clearly displeased. There's nothing inappropriate about it. They're just pretending to be innocent. What? I turned around and saw the boys standing there, glaring at Zachary with deep resentment. Come on, we just wanted to leave a good impression on the new boss. Is that a crime? By the time we all sat down inside the private room, Zachary still hadn't let go of my hand. Cody was the first to speak. Boss, don't overthink it. Even though we're young, we understand everything. Yeah. Another teammate hurriedly chimed in. We totally support you being with Zachary. And after the way Marcel treated you, and even publicly tried to stir up drama at the airport, what you and Zachary have is self-defense. Every single one of them used such strange wording. Another boy, probably drunk off too much cola, suddenly slammed the table and stood up. Burp, true love is innocent. Seeing the conversation spiraling further and further out of control, Zachary tapped the edge of the table with his chopsticks and said expressionlessly, "Eat." Everyone instantly lowered their heads in silence. Whether it was being dragged by my father to countless drinking parties and banquets to be paraded around, or following Marcel to gatherings with his friends after marriage, I had long grown used to feeling malice and cold judgment from crowds. It felt as though I had spent all these years walking a tightrope, my heart suspended endlessly in midair. But now, suddenly, my feet touched solid ground. After dinner, the rain outside became even heavier. The boys waved enthusiastically as they said goodbye to me. Boss, come visit the training center sometime and watch us practice. After they left, only Zachary and I remained. He had a mint candy in his mouth, one hand tucked into the pocket of his hoodie, tilting his head up. He watched the rain falling beneath the streetlights before suddenly opening the car door and pulling me inside. I stumbled directly onto his lap, swaying unsteadily, instinctively grabbing onto something for support. Zachary let out a muffled groan. The redness at the tips of his ears spread all the way down his neck. Realizing something was wrong, I instinctively tried to pull my hand back, but he caught it and held it firmly in place. You really know how to find the perfect spot. Sis. His voice was thick with desire as he leaned closer to my ear inch by inch. His scorching breath carried the faint coolness of mint candy. Since you've already grabbed it, don't let go. I pressed my lips together softly. Hot. Just that single word seemed to completely destroy the last thread of Zachary's self-control. He could barely suppress the ragged breathing escaping his lips. Closing his eyes briefly, he forcibly lifted me off his lap and placed me in the passenger seat before starting the car. Iris, you're seducing me. You're done for. Chapter 14. Outside, rain poured down in torrents. Inside Zachary's bedroom, damp heat rose slowly beneath the glow of the lights. His hand pressed against the most sensitive spot on my lower back. Sometimes gentle, sometimes firm, his voice rough and low. I'm going to kiss you now. Don't hide from me, Iris. Under the dim lighting, temptation coiled through his gaze like silken threads wrapping tighter and tighter around me. Bite down a little harder. Beyond the glass windows, The rain roared endlessly, like a storm watering an entire century. At 4 in the morning, I gathered my freshly dried hair over one shoulder and finally remembered something important. If you keep doing this, even if you're the star player, won't your real boss be upset? Maybe I should meet him and actually discuss investment cooperation properly. Zachary raised an eyebrow, then suddenly laughed. I don't think you understand yet. There is no boss. The owner of the club is me, sis. I stared at him blankly. Only after Zachary explained everything did I finally understand. From the very beginning, this esports team had been established in the country through people working on his behalf. The 40 million annual salary. I just made that up casually. I can pay myself however much I want. I'm telling you all this because I want to prove that I'm not the lovesick idiot you called me 7 years ago. I can protect you now, whether it's from your parents' coercion or the storm of public opinion. Bitterness flooded my chest. Those were all words I had personally said to him when I broke up with him back then. It had been pouring rain outside. He still carried the damp scent of the ocean breeze from the day before at the beach. And he had stood stubbornly in front of me just like that, staring directly into my eyes. Iris, I don't agree to break up. I smiled faintly. This isn't something that requires your agreement. Zachary, I'm informing you unilaterally. You're skipping school just because of a relationship. Even willing to throw away your own future. How could I possibly sincerely love some love-struck idiot whose head is full of romance? From the very beginning, I was just playing around with you. That day, I said countless cruel things to him. By the end of it, Zachary's eyes had turned red. Tears mixed into the rainwater on his face. Yet he still refused to leave. When I turned around and walked away, he waited downstairs the entire night. I came back to myself from the memory and spoke softly. I thought you would hate me. Of course I hated you. He tugged at the corner of his lips before suddenly saying, actually, before I left, on the day I went to the airport, I still couldn't stop myself from going to see you. I froze. Unfortunately, I saw another man taking you home. You were wearing a beautiful evening dress and looked stunning. Before he left, he even kissed you. I tried recalling it, but I still couldn't remember who that person was. During those years when my father desperately tried to push me toward wealthy and powerful men, things like that had happened far more than once or twice. Embarrassed, I lowered my eyes, only to hear Zachary continue. When I was studying abroad, I couldn't stop thinking about you. I kept thinking about the things you said when you broke up with me, and how only 1 month later, you were already dating someone else. The more I thought about it, the more I felt like maybe you were right. He laughed self-mockingly. I was too young. I didn't even have certainty about my own future. How could I ask you for promises? So later, when someone invited me into the professional esports scene, I agreed. Iris, I wanted to stand somewhere dazzling enough for you to see me. Much later, I would meet one of Zachary's former teammates from overseas. He told me that back then, Zachary had been almost obsessively determined to win championships. Several times, he pushed his hand speed so close to the limit that he nearly caused permanent damage. When he lifted the championship trophy, he kept staring into the dark audience seats. I asked him who he was looking at, but he never answered. But on this night, I still knew none of that. I only covered my eyes and murmured softly. I thought you came back to get revenge on me. I came back to date you. Zachary gazed straight into my eyes. Iris, I know what you're thinking. These past few years have been hard on you, and you've become completely different from the girl you used to be. You're even trying to pretend to be your 18-year-old self again in front of me. But you don't have to. He leaned closer and kissed me. Because when I love you, I love every part of you. Chapter 15. On the day of the beginning of autumn, the third phase of cooperation between the Law Corporation and the Sioux Corporation officially began. I called my mother and calmly told her, the Sioux Corporation is in my hands now. If you want to leave my father, I'll help you. Instead, she cursed me out for being an unfilial daughter. After hanging up, I told Zachary, I can't save her. Maybe spending her entire life being tormented by my father is just her fate. He nodded, with slightly messy hair and an indifferent expression. He reached over to straighten my wrinkled collar. You've already wasted 7 years for her. Surely I couldn't destroy my entire life for her too. I touched the cigarette case inside my bag. After thinking for a moment, I put it back. Marcel contacted me. He agreed to the divorce. But he wants to meet me before he'll sign the papers. Zachary's expression instantly turned cold. I'm going with you. 3 days later. At dusk. I met Marcel at the same bar as before. He looked at me through drunken eyes. And the first thing he said was, I already broke up with Rose. Iris, can we remarry? Before I could even respond, Zachary beside me let out a cold laugh. The original is already back. What's the point of keeping a cheap knockoff around? The moment Marcel saw him, his expression darkened immediately. His lips moved slightly as he looked at me. When did you two get together? That's none of your business. Expressionless. I held out my hand toward him. The divorce papers. Give them to me. Marcel let out a bitter laugh. Iris, I really regret it. I underestimated you before because all the rumors about you were terrible. And back then, you always lowered your head in front of me, acting obedient and submissive. I didn't know. Didn't know what? I abruptly cut him off. Didn't know this was the real me? Didn't know I smoke, drink, and quietly took control of my father's company? Or did you not realize that you're just pathetic? When someone treats you well, you don't value it. But the moment someone stops putting you on a pedestal, suddenly you can't let go? We still have business partnerships between our companies. Marcel, you've seen enough of the world. Stop making such ridiculous displays. Marcel looked at me with a defeated expression. There was even a trace of cheap sorrow in his eyes. I ignored him completely, took the signed divorce agreement from his hand, and turned to leave. Later, Rose even came to my company looking for me. Right in front of me, she screamed that I was promiscuous, accusing me of acting ambiguously with Zachary before even finalizing my divorce with Marcel, calling me utterly disgusting. I listened for a while before finally losing patience. Standing up, I grabbed her by the throat and brought the lit end of my cigarette close to her face. The glowing ember stopped barely a centimeter away from her cheek. Ah, what are you doing? You wouldn't dare. Iris, you wouldn't dare. Amid Rose's terrified screams, I curled my lips into a faint smile. You went through all that effort to suppress me and encouraged your fans to cyberbully me. I didn't bother dealing with you before because I still needed Marcel. But now, with only this much ability, you really shouldn't come provoke me anymore. I released her, stubbed the cigarette out in the ashtray, and watched her flee in humiliation. Then I called security. Don't let her in here again. Only after finishing all that did I speak toward the side of the room. You can come out now. Zachary stepped out from behind the shadow of the curtains. Sis. I turned to look at him. A while ago, I asked one of my classmates overseas to help investigate something interesting. Whether to use it, and when to use it, that's up to you. Chapter 16. When summer arrived the following year, the Swan District project jointly developed by the Sioux Corporation and the Law Corporation officially came to a successful conclusion. Using the evidence Zachary had uncovered about Rose and Marcel taking drugs at parties overseas, I sent both of them straight onto the trending searches. The two were taken away for investigation. Law Corporation's stock price plummeted, and I seized the opportunity to snatch away several projects that Marcel had originally been heavily favored to win. There's a high chance they'll end up in prison. Cody spoke without even turning around, fingers flying rapidly across the keyboard. So-called overseas studying. Spending every day partying in clubs and getting high. Who knows what exactly they were studying? The others were carrying out their usual hand speed training while gossiping at the same time, all looking thoroughly delighted by the scandal. Zachary played silently for quite a while. Only after the word victory appeared across the screen did he finally push the keyboard forward. Training's over for today. He took my hand. We're going on a date. Cody shouted from behind him. But the finals are next week. Captain, you. Zachary turned his head slightly and cast him a cool, indifferent glance. Cody immediately fell silent. A moment later, he muttered quietly, "Have fun with the boss." I hadn't expected Zachary to bring me to the seaside. The deserted shore from 7 years ago had now, after years of development, become a fairly famous tourist attraction. He led me toward a stretch of empty reefs. The sea breeze carried a damp, heavy warmth that lifted the hem of my dress. With a mint candy in his mouth, Zachary turned and kissed me. The moment our breaths intertwined, countless memories flashed through my mind. Chaotic fragments rushed past until, in the end, Everything froze on that clumsy yet reckless deep kiss from 8 years ago. When the long kiss finally ended, he pulled back slightly and laughed softly. After the finals next week, I'm retiring. I froze for a moment, staring at him in surprise. Retiring? Yeah, honestly. In this industry, hand speed and reaction time are always tied to age. At 24, I'm already near the end of a professional career. I should have retired earlier. Actually, he paused, lowering his gaze to look at me. It's just that I wanted to win one more championship, here in this country, right in front of you. It was impossible to describe the fierce rush of emotion that surged through my heart at that moment, but I had long grown used to restraint. In the end, all I could do was hold him tightly and whisper softly, I'm sorry. From now on, I won't miss another important moment in your life ever again. On the day of the finals, as the team's new owner, I stood right behind Zachary and watched him lift the championship trophy together with his teammates. I remembered what his former overseas teammate once told me, how joyful yet lonely Zachary had looked the first time he held up a championship trophy. A painful ache instantly filled my chest. Later, during the press conference, he officially announced his retirement. Someone asked, "What are your plans for the future? Have you considered staying with the team as a coach?" To everyone's surprise, Zachary nodded seriously. I do plan to stay. From now on, I'll be the team owner's husband. That night, my INS comment section was flooded with passionate fans coming to congratulate us, and Zachary's old side account, which had been abandoned for years, suddenly updated with a new INS post. From now on, I'll peacefully devote myself to being a supportive husband. Sitting on the sofa, I quietly liked the post. Zachary suddenly asked me, "Do you know the team's name?" I shook my head and turned to look at him. The team is called Rainbow, because it always appears after the rain, just like you. He set down the trophy and walked over to kiss me. Iris, I want to stay by your side forever.